Having debt can happen to anyone at any stage of their life for a variety of reasons. This COVID situation has been a perfect example. You may have been self-employed, or you had a job and you were doing great, and then COVID hit and your income was cut off. That wasn't through a lack of planning. That is a outside of your ability to control scenario that happens. Same thing as people that get injured at work, etc. So there's absolutely no stigma attached to it. We're here to try to help you find a solution that gets you out of a problem. Consumer insolvency statistics to the end of Q2 are down dramatically. They're into record low territory. In fact, the decline in Q2 of this year compared to Q2 of last year was a decline of 45%. And so it would be an indication to a lot of people that says, well, clearly there isn't a problem with consumer debt in Canada. But I don't believe that is an accurate assessment. And in fact, the Office of Superintendent of Bankruptcy has come out with similar statistics. If you actually look at it, in 2019, we ended with the second highest level of consumer insolvencies in Canadian history at over 137,000. As we started into the current year, January, we were up 10.6%. In February, we were up 9.2%, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, a lot of financial institutions started telling people, well, we'll let you defer your mortgages, we'll let you defer consumer debt, credit cards, loans, stuff like that. The government came along with the CERB payments to assist people. And what happened is a lot of people just sort of said, I'm just going to focus on covering my day-to-days right now. I'll get the deferral on my debt payments, and I'll wait and see where this shakes out. So once that happened, in March, numbers went down 8.5%, and then it really started. In April, they were down 43%. In May, they were down 50%. In June, 41%. So there's been this dramatic decline in the number of people seeking help. But the problem is it's about to end. The government's emergency response benefits, or the CERB, is actually ending this month and into September for people depending on when they signed up. The deferrals that were introduced by the by the various financial institutions on mortgages and loans, those are all coming to an end in September. And so what that means for people is they're going to actually have to start looking at how are they going to address that debt that they've acquired, and then the expectation is that that's going to lead to a significant increase in the number of people having to seek restructuring help. When the financial institution introduced the mortgage and credit card deferrals, some people have mistakenly thought it was a forgiveness. And we have to be absolutely clear, it is not a forgiveness. It is a deferral. So what the deferral means is you don't have to pay it now, you're going to pay it down the road. But mortgages and credit cards and loans all incur interest charges. The interest charges were not deferred and have continued to accrue. Therefore, when you go to start to repay your credit card, for instance, if you took the deferral on it, your balance is actually going to be higher now because of the interest that's been deferred. Same thing with your mortgage. When you go to talk to the financial institution to say, hey, I want to get back on paying my mortgage, your monthly payments on your mortgage are actually going to go higher. And the reason they're going to be higher is because of all that interest that did not get paid during the deferral period. So people do need to be aware of this issue and recognize that their payments on a go-forward basis from the deferral are actually going to be higher. The sooner you talk to a person like a licensed insolvency trustee, the more options we have. Because we can look at things like proposals versus bankruptcies, or do you actually even need to go that far? Do you have equity in a home that we could refer you to a mortgage broker to refinance your home? So we do have more options the sooner we can get involved. Signs that you should be looking for are that you've got debts coming due that you're unable to pay, that you're staggering which month you pay certain debts. If you're borrowing on one card to pay another card, then that's a problem. If you're getting collection calls because you just can't keep up with the payments, then that, again, there's a sign that you should be talking to someone. And one of the points I think that's extremely important for everyone to recognize is the radio right now is just filled with ads from people offering to help you repay your debt. Not all service providers are the same. If it says they're a licensed insolvency trustee, that means they're licensed by the federal government to be able to do bankruptcies and proposals for you. However, if they don't say that, they're likely a debt consultant. A debt consultant charges you a fee to provide you with advice and then refers you to a trustee. And you don't need to pay the debt consultant to understand your options. The trustee does that for free. So what I would do right now is, as we're coming off of the government assistance payments, and we're going to have to start looking at repaying our mortgages and loans and lines of credit, I think everyone needs to take stock with what's their situation right now. And how far out do I want them to? I want to start with at least a monthly budget. I might even get more down into a weekly budget, depending on your cash flow situation. So if you are working, but you're not working full time right now, then I'd be looking at a budget that's based on what you have coming in right now, and then saying, well, when am I expected to go back to full time, and when is that going to improve my cash flow? If that's in a month or two, then I'd be doing a monthly budget. If it was, in a couple of weeks, it's going to keep changing, then I'd be looking at it in a more down to a weekly basis till I could figure out what my stabilized cash flow was. What we're going to get you to do is try to take stock of where all your debts are. How much do you owe? When are the payments coming due? What are your fixed costs? What's your mortgage payment or your rent? What's your grocery bill? We want you to work out a budget on a monthly basis. It's fairly defined. Some people may do it by their paycheck because they find it easier, but I'd say at least monthly, and work it out that way and figure out whether or not you have enough income coming in to pay your debts as they come due. If you don't, that's when you're going to look to reach out to someone to figure out, well, this is my current situation. If I'm full-time, it's not going to change. If I in 6 months is before I get back to full-time, well, what does that work out to? And because that's what we do with people, is we work out their budgets with them to try to figure out what's the best solution to help them address their debt. If they have too much debt and their income's not going to be sufficient, that's when we start looking at things like consumer proposals for them. So the first part is the stigma part. It's what we do. We work at this full time. We in the BDO world, we do about 12,000 files a year across the country. We see people each and every day. There is no stigma attached to this. Having debt can happen to anyone at any stage of their life for a variety of reasons. Well, this is where we work with people on their budgets to figure out how they're going to get out of debt. If you have a bunch of debt that you're unable to pay, then the concern for you is that one of your creditors is going to take you to court and get judgment against you. If they get judgment against you, they're going to garnish your wages. They're going to be at 20% of your wages gone. If you're barely making ends meet now, losing 20% of your wage to a garnishment isn't going to help situation. And then that would only be one of your debts versus dealing with all of your debts. So to say I can't afford it, that's where we look at options. Should you be in a proposal? Should you be in a bankruptcy? What's the best solution for the person? If you're in a proposal, we work through your cash flow with you to make sure you can afford the proposal. So I don't think saying I can't afford it, if you've got the debt and the chances of a wage garnishment coming are there, you can't not deal with the debt. And it's better to work with us and figure out, well, what are my options? What we see from a lot of people who come in to talk to us is they come in really nervous, and maybe from what you were saying, I didn't want to talk to anyone about my debt, or I don't know what my solutions are. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And when they leave, they're telling us how relieved they are because they now know they have a plan that we can put in place for them.